week. My name is Rina Little from Little Works Indie Media, and Greg is here. Greg, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg from Original 72 Creative.
Awesome.
Welcome.
And can we have a hands up if you can see us? Because our restream is not working, and I just want to make sure that we are actually going live in the group. I have no idea.
I see we're in
Oh,
live in the group. Yep.
excellent. Okay, we're just going to go with this for now then. So hopefully we'll get the replay up on all of our other channels later on. But in the meantime, today's topic is blogging, and we're going to go through blogging, the whole thing about blogging, and then next week we're going to be talking about distribution. So this is a really great one to pay attention to if you're interested in getting some um, bits and pieces and about blogging that will get you to the next level in your marketing. Because most people really just function in the way that they are trying to get information out to their audience. And they focus on being the purveyor of information. And they're not really thinking about how the blog actually works in the world and with marketing and on your WordPress site or whichever site you're using. So, Greg, where are we starting again?
Well, I think one of the things at the very top was to think about creative and choosing the right topics and things. So maybe we chat on that.
Great. Okay. Well, one of the things that I get back from my tutoring clients or training clients is that when they sit down to write their blog articles, all of a sudden they hit blank. They don't really know what to write about. They don't know where to start. There's so much information. And generally, when I'm training people, I do get that feedback. They're always like, I don't know where to start. And when you sit down and you organize your content calendar, that's where all of your information is going to pile out. You're going to start organizing topics, and you want to organize them according to your different categories. Perhaps you have different categories in your business that you could cover that would use different keywords. We want to make sure we're getting a really good plan of topics across time and across categories. So, for example, if you're a marketing company, you don't want to be focusing only on Facebook all the time. You want to make sure you're going to hit some of those other topics like Twitter or Mailchimp or whatever other ways that you do business and can teach people. Um, and then what I do and what I recommend to people is like just have a dump, spend about 30 minutes brain dumping onto a piece of paper, write it all out, and then organize your categories. And if you are like me and things hit you when you're in the world, say when I do my training, um, something will come to me or someone will ask me a really great question that I hadn't thought about how to answer. And what I usually do is I keep a little record. I've got a notebook with a folder on my phone, one of those notebook apps. And generally, I'll just jot down a couple of sentences to trigger my memory. Maybe I'll take a photo if it's about something in the world, so that I have a photo to put with my blog
Mm.
post. And I'll just bank that. And then when you sit down and you organize your content calendar, which should be the next step, you want to make sure that you are pulling all of your best content. So stick to your best content, and your best content looks like something that's relevant to your topic, to your industry, something that people haven't really been talking about too much because you'll find that you will be offering something that's unique, something that's out there in the world already, but you have a different perspective, or you disagree with, or you might have something to add to it. Those kinds of things, wherever
I
you're going to
would,
be able to add your own value.
I would
You had a
say
question?
something that solves the problem or something that
Yes,
answers a
definitely.
question as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And that moves us into the second part. So you've got all of your topics, you know what you want to help your clients discover, and then you want to make sure that you're writing your blog article to answer those questions that people are going to be putting into the search engine. So not just many people think about solving their clients' problems, but you also want to be solving problems for people who aren't yet your clients. That's the point. Get them to your website. so that perhaps you can do business with them. So the creative
That's an
part,
interesting comment. I
yeah,
don't know if I've ever thought about it specifically that way, but coming at the article as someone who hasn't worked with you or is looking to work with you, what are the specific questions that they typically ask, and
yeah,
catering to those, because that will give you that much better SEO results in people who
yes,
will be new clients finding you. That's a
yes.
great tip.
Yeah, and you want to make sure, and that's why I'm talking about with blog articles, you always want to make sure that you're adding your own value. If you're taking somebody else's blog article and rewriting it, technically, that's plagiarism and not really a good look, especially if you're not citing. You can take pieces from other people's work, paraphrase, and cite. That's always good. But what the meat of the article should be are your own ideas, your secret sauce, whatever it is that you're adding to it. Otherwise, what happens from a user experience is if I'm asking a question, putting it out, putting it into the Google search engine, I'm going to probably read the top three blog articles or articles. And if they all say the exact same thing, I'm going to be annoyed because that just tells me that it's the same stuff regurgitated on every site, right? And nobody really likes that. So that's really not a very good look. And the blog post that always gets my attention is the one that is actually does solve the problem. So they do that thing where they solve the problem. They sound like they know what they're doing and very confident. They've organized it very easily for me. And three, they've added their own bit that I'm not going to get from anywhere else. And that would make me want to reach out to that particular person rather than any of the other blog articles I've read on the same topic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
One of the things I've always struggled with for content related stuff, or coming up with blogs, which is the main reason I don't have a blog for myself, is that I feel like everything's almost been said for the web
yeah,
development community. And when I see it online, I'm like, well, why bother writing about that? It's already been written about. It's just going to be my point of view. Like, what can I put a spin on it? Do you have a suggestion of for
yeah,
people that if they have a lot of content that's similar to what's out there? Do you
yeah,
feel there's a
that,
good way, or
yes.
proper way of basically putting out the same information but with a twist?
Yes, 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 yes. So, that's really common, especially when you're doing kind of educational pieces like how-tos, for example. So the how-to is not really going to change that much, really, from one
Oh,
writer to the next, right? But what's going to change a lot, or what can change, is the why. So share your why. Why do you do it like that? Is there something that you like to do that's slightly different than other people? So, for example, if you're teaching people how to add your alt text to your photo, including the bit where you want to change the name of the photo before you upload the photo. That's not part of the general how-to. That's like pulling information from somewhere else. Or let me see here. A different example might be um, so we do SEO people will recommend putting in alt text on photos for SEO purposes, but maybe you want to also add in the accessibility piece, and then you can add examples. That's another way of adding in unique content. Your examples or your case studies are other ways of
mhm,
creating unique content. Your opinions, those are unique content if your opinion is unique. And all of that kind of stuff, um, you know, that can really add. So instead of just a basic, and you get that actually, it happens a lot on recipe blogs. If you see those, they have a really organized structure, particular structure. It doesn't really switch that much between blogs, where they tell like these giant stories, right? Before you
mhm.
get, and it's actually kind of annoying. It does a couple of things. It helps with
I
SEO,
was
but
going to say it's
yeah,
annoying.
it is annoying. You might not want to do it to this extent, but what that does is it allows way more space to put ads on your page, which is primarily why they do it in particular, because that's the only way that they're making money with their recipes. But perhaps what you want to do is just put in a little anecdote. Those blog posts, what they do is they put in the anecdotes, they put in the substitutions for you, they put in the things that they've noticed. Can you freeze it? Can you not freeze it? Can you, you know what I mean? All of those kinds of details that that are helpful, but not necessarily part of the general how-to. So anecdotes are great, and they only take a sentence or two generally, and you don't have to fill the page because generally, if you're running a business blog, you're not putting other people's ads on your business blog because that's not particularly great for branding.
Yeah, and for the most part, those types of things, like they're trying to get people to the site and keep them on the site, so they have this
Yes,
big long thing to have a
yes,
longer page reading time and more space to get additional ads and things like that. Most people aren't going to be, developing pieces for that purpose. It's
no,
more about the writing and
yep,
what you're putting out there
and the
for
media.
your users.
Yeah, and the media. So the other piece that I totally forgot to mention, which is important to put unique content up, is video. So if you can get a video to accompany your blog post, generally, you don't want your blog post to be transcript of the video. You want the blog post to kind of recap what's in the video in a different way, saying it in a different way, like organizing it. Because on video, we tend to ramble, we don't always do full sentences, all that sort of stuff. So transcripts aren't particularly great experience for readers, but a summary of what's been said, then some additional information, maybe a handy checklist. Things that you can't put in a video are really great for blog posts. And downloadables. If you really want to provide good value for your reader and you've got a checklist, it's nice when they want to come back and do that checklist. But let's say they don't work that way. Let's say they're a little bit more old school. Maybe you want to provide a downloadable checklist so that they can print it off and use a pen, as some people prefer, you know, that kind of thing. Think about all of your users and who you're targeting. For me, I target a lot of women solopreneurs who are not particularly tech savvy or not confident in technology. And so, therefore, my blog should have things that are going to satisfy the way that they're already working in addition to what I'm trying to get across.
Spreadsheets, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the kind of creative side of it, but we have a lot to cover in the technical side of it too, don't we?
Yeah, we sort of talked about the mechanics of writing, as well as
Yeah.
images and copywriting.
Well, I think I'm just gonna tick two of um, my approaches to writing the copy because there really should be an entire um, workshop on how to write blog posts. But there are
Yeah,
two tips that I think are the best, and that happens with the H2 tags, which are subheadings, because you always want subheadings, H2 tags in your blog posts. And we always think if you're an academic writer and you, especially if you're in the social sciences or sciences, you're going to have your title is going to be introduction. Then it's going to be like something basic, like the 5 key points, and then it's not going to say of what. There's no like major nouns in there, right? And then
hmm
it'll say conclusion. But what we really want to do is to flip that around and be specific. So you really want to include your main points in your subtitles so that they become the answer to a question that someone's going to put into Google. So for example, instead of putting the the five top tips to write, that's too broad. You might want to say the 5 top tips to write um, to write. Let's see, write in a particular way. So write. I'm drawing a blank here now. It's terrible. Drawing a blank.
write creatively.
Yeah, write creatively for your blog posts or for your for
Audience.
to write for, yeah, you could write for social media newbies or something like that. Like make sure that you're putting specifics in your H2 tags that are going to help you with your keywords that you're trying to rank for.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to want to you're going to want to proofread, and the best way to proofread, if you don't have somebody do it for you, is to read it aloud. Because when you read it in your head, your eye and brain will correct your brain will correct the mistakes as you read it. If you know, when you see those little things that go around on social media when there are like no vowels in anything and it says, if you can read this, you're the smartest person in the world, when actually
Yeah.
pretty much everyone can do that. So your brain is actually designed to do that. So don't read silently when you're proofreading. Read aloud, because then you will be able to, your tongue will trip over the mistakes.
When I'm writing, sometimes I will skip complete words.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I'm writing something and I'm thinking about what I'm writing, and I know I thought
Yes.
it, but I didn't actually write the
Get
word.
it down?
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Because sometimes we're in a rush. Sometimes, for whatever reason, our brain doesn't help us because it likes to fill in for us. And that's exactly right. It's really hard to edit your own work. That takes a long time to develop that skill. I remember going through my own grief trying to, you know, trying to learn that skill. And I don't know if I'm still successful at it, but I certainly can proofread other people's work. But yeah, so definitely read it aloud and read it in a normal reading voice. Don't speed read. It's also gonna, because you do skip when you speed read anyways. So those
yeah,
are the two things. And then we should really talk about we'll have to do, I know that Pip's done one on keyword research, so we'll probably link to that, because you're going to want to actually make sure that you're doing your keyword research for your blog articles. That'll really help you. And I generally write the outline of my blog uh,
yeah. And just
at the
just a
same time
note
that I'm,
on that,
yeah,
I would say going into it, you should know the keyword that you're going to be optimizing a specific post
yeah,
for or a
definitely.
specific blog for the most part.
Yeah, so you might know the short keyword, but you might not have settled on the long tail keyword at that particular minute. But you definitely
Yeah.
want, so for me it's a push and pull. So I'll sort of start with the short keyword, then I'll start to build my foundation. So I'll build my outline, and then all of a sudden it'll become super obvious who I'm writing it for, and then the long tail keyword will present itself, and then that goes in the title, and variations go throughout the H2 tags and the alt text, all of that stuff. It goes in your meta tag, all those good places that we know to put our keywords, and and that's really important. And there was one other thing about the building of the blog post that is good to know. You really need to be familiar with copyright laws in terms of where you're getting your images from. Please absolutely be clear that you have the rights to images, even ones that are marked commons, copyright commons, creative commons, that they sometimes still have the attribution requirements. And if you're skipping the attribution requirements, there's actually, I think I've talked about this guy once already on a live here, but this guy in Europe, this is his only way of making money is by catching people mismanaging his photos and not putting the proper attribution. And he
Mm.
charges people, like, I think it's $900 for the retroactive annual license. And then you're hooped, because it costs way less to buy a photo, right? It
Yeah,
costs way less. So
absolutely.
please don't make that mistake. Be absolutely sure that you're doing it correctly. Better to take your
Yeah, I
own
haven't had a
photos.
lot of people caught with that, but I've maybe over my 20 plus years, I've had two people, I believe, who have had issues with images, which I think that's pretty good. Over 20 years, and only two of my clients have come across an issue where someone's contacted them about copyrighted images.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, it's been two also. And one was unnecessary. The other one was a company absolutely, absolutely took the image. They just thought that if they found it on the web, that they could just, and they could actually physically download it, that it was theirs to download. So that's a
I actually
mistake.
have a really great story about that, but it's probably a little bit too long for.
Next time,
I'll tell you
next
off
time.
camera maybe.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so on images, I mean, we should probably go through the basics of obviously naming your images with your keywords in it, and obviously using the alt text to describe the image as well.
Yeah.
Now, I know the alt text of an image is really meant to describe what that image is. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of SEO people basically just keyword stuff that instead of describing. Do you have
Yeah.
any
Yes.
comments on?
Yes, I try and find a middle ground. So my idea is that if you can actually describe it with your keyword in it, that's ideal.
Yeah.
But putting a whole bunch, like I actually just went through a site and somebody put like Vancouver, British Columbia on every single photo, just because they were really wanting to rank for local. And I don't even know. We'd have to ask Pip if that's helpful. I really don't think it is. I think stick to what it's used for primarily is prime function is for accessibility. So we want to make
Hmm.
sure we're actually doing that, especially since there are so many rules now. Legislation is being passed in British Columbia and Ontario about accessibility and making sure that websites are accessible. So yes, definitely use accessibility as your number one. But uh, number two, if you could try and stick a keyword in, that's great. But number three, if you're organized for accessibility, Google actually, that's what Google wants right now. Google is really privileging um, websites that are organized for accessibility. And there is actually a BC grant to help you pay for the upgrades to get your website accessible. So there's that is still available for anyone that's interested. Um, so I actually think that keyword stuffing in alt text is becoming less and less relevant.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We had a comment from Mona. She mentioned that she gets emails all the time for her website and about the photo copyright
Oh,
infringements,
yeah.
and all of their imagery is their own, so they're bogus
Yeah,
emails.
that
And I've
happens
seen this
too. That
before
happens too. Yeah.
with one customer in particular, and this customer, I actually did all of the photography on the site. So
So
whenever
funny.
something comes in, I'm like, "Yep, disregard that. It's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Oh yeah,
You're fine."
there are so many phishing expeditions out there when it comes to copyright. I haven't seen one for copyright, but when it comes to that, also domain information, um, lots of lots of domain registration is another big one. Um, yeah, they'll try and get you. Man, they just don't stop finding
Yeah.
ways
So
to try and mess you up.
let's move on to on-page SEO. I know we already talked about images and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
some of the on-page SEO and SEO tools we can mention. I guess I'll mention the ones that I've used most for allowing SEO on the site are Yoast, which probably most people know about because it has been big for a long time, but Rank Math, which is the one
Oh
that I'm
yeah.
currently using.
All right.
Both of those, and there are others, but those are two that can be used to help you optimize your blog with everything you need to do on the site. So maybe we'll go through some of the major on-page SEO things
Yeah.
that definitely need to be looked at for a blog.
Sure. Sure. So your title should have your keyword. You have to have H2 tags. You want the alt text. You want an internal link. You want an external link. You want to have a decent amount of content. so not thin content. And I recommend having a featured image, although I don't think that has anything to do with SEO. But it really helps when you're sharing your link outwards, like distributing. We'll talk about that next week. Um, and I think those are the main. Oh, and your meta tag, which will become the little description underneath the name of your page on your um, on Google search results. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's called a SERP. Um, so those
Yep.
are the basics, and um,
One
yeah,
of the other things I had mentioned and had come across as a technique to get links or anchors, as they would be called. A link, it can be an external link, an internal link, or a link to something on that specific page, which is referred to as an anchor.
hmm
But adding a table of contents at the top of your blog can get those links that will shoot you down the article directly to where it's answering that question.
yeah,
And
that sounds
those
great.
are very good for blogs, not only for being able to get to the content that the reader is interested in most right away, but also for getting those anchor questions in a link that will go down to that section of the page.
Right. Yeah, that sounds really great. That sounds great for user experience. Sometimes we don't want the entire blog post, we just want our question answered. But also, please only use that if you're writing long blogs. So maybe 750 plus words. Otherwise, it's just annoying. You
Which
want to
most
have a
blogs
blog, sorry?
should, which I would say most blogs you should be trying to get at
Mm,
least over 600 words
I don't
for
know.
it
I
to
don't know about that.
really be. I think to really be worthwhile in ranking and get your keyword density on there, you should probably be over 600 for sure for
I
biggest impact. I would say.
I think there are lots of ways around that. If you've got video, you certainly don't need that much content. If you're hitting a really niche, if you're niching down your topics super narrow, then small blog posts can rank very easily with long tail
Mm,
keywords. And I think that long tail keyword strategy is a great strategy to go with, and being super specific. So instead of writing all the things about the one topic, you get your topic as it's your topic that's going to be more narrow. I wish I could. I'll come up with an example in the comments below for somebody to show the difference between a general blog topic and a narrow blog topic. But it's like really narrowing down your thesis if you've ever done any academic writing. It's a really narrow sliver of the pie, of the whole
yeah.
topic
Okay.
pie. Yeah. But yeah, generally, you definitely want to be over 350 words. That's a minimum for sure. Um, I like to bracket between 350 and like around 500, and then anything between 500 and 1,000. And, or if you're doing a really big one, because sometimes you want to make a series out of it instead of one giant long one, even if it does
Mm,
rank. And you're right, that's good. If you're doing a super long one, then that's where the table of contents is perfect. It just works perfectly. But I always think of that as lost opportunity because you really have five long tail keywords in that one blog article, so they could actually rank separately.
yeah. The other
Depends on the
thing too is
strategy.
if you do separate ones, you can as you post the subsequent blogs, you can interlink all of them to
That's right.
get that going as well. Yeah.
Yep. I can't really see the time because I don't have my glasses with me. So are
Yeah,
we
we're
over
we're
time?
about time to wrap. We're about time to wrap up, and it's probably good because those were all of the points we've already gone through
Great.
in our list. So we hit everything we scheduled to hit.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So join us next week. If you're watching this from another channel, we are found in the Cyberpunk Geek.
Marketing
Where are we, Greg?
mixer,
Cyberpunk Geek
geeks,
Speak
marketing mixer.
Marketing Mixer in Facebook.
Is it
We
is it a
we
handful?
do. Yes, I know it's a mouthful. I never get it right. I feel like such a moron. So that's where we actually are. So you can join us there if you want to ask us questions during the week. Otherwise, you can join us next week for the second part of the blogging, which is going to be distribution. So now that you've written your blog, you've got it all up, you've done up all the beautiful SEO. Um, how do you get it out into the world? Distribution. Join us next week.
And that's a topic with you and Phelan. So everybody
Yes, it is.
join
That's
in for
right.
that.
All right. See you next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.